At my brother Tyler's promotion party, my own family mocked me, called me uneducated, worthless, and a freeloader. They all laughed, but I didn't. I raised my glass, smiled, and said, "This is the last time any of you will ever see me. Please stick with me as I tell you my story, and please do not forget to support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing with your loved ones." I walked into my parents' house that night holding a simple homemade dessert, thinking maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. I told myself not to expect too much, but a small part of me still hoped my family would look at me and see someone who tried, someone who cared. As soon as I stepped into the dining room, I knew I was wrong. My mother barely glanced at me before turning away to brag about Tyler's new promotion. My father didn't say hello, didn't ask how I was doing, didn't even acknowledge I was there. I stood there quietly, pretending it didn't sting. Tyler spotted me and smirked, calling me over like I was some lost child. He wrapped an arm around my shoulder and introduced me to his co-workers as the sister who never finished anything in life. They laughed, thinking it was harmless humor. He added that I still didn't know what a real job looked like, and that I should try growing up someday. The room erupted in laughter again. Every word felt like it scraped across my skin. I tried to swallow the embarrassment, telling myself to stay calm, but when Tyler took the dessert out of my hands and held it up like some sad joke, saying, "She brought this because she can't afford anything nicer," the last piece of my patience snapped. I felt the heat rising behind my eyes. But instead of breaking down, I smiled. I lifted my glass and said the words that surprised even me. I told them this would be the last time they'd see me. They laughed again, thinking I was being dramatic. I walked out before the tears could fall. The cold air outside hit me harder than the insults. I got in my car, drove until I reached the overlook by the bridge, and let myself cry the way I couldn't inside that house. Everything I had done for them flashed through my mind. Years of helping with bills, working long hours, supporting Tyler through school, being there whenever they needed me. But none of it mattered. They had rewritten me into the family failure. I turned off my phone, blocked every number, and sat there alone, trying to figure out what my life was supposed to look like now that I had finally cut them off. I had no idea that while I sat in that dark parking lot wiping tears from my face, someone was calling with an opportunity that would change everything. My phone lit up with the voicemail later that night. Marcus Bennett offering me a position based solely on the portfolio I'd almost given up on. I didn't know it then, but that moment, the humiliation, the walkout, the heartbreak, was the beginning of the life I was meant to live. I used to believe that when you sacrifice for family, it means something. At 22, I left college because my father's health collapsed and the family business was close to shutting down. Someone had to step in, pay the bills, and keep everything from falling apart. That someone became me. I didn't hesitate, and I didn't expect praise. I simply thought doing the right thing would matter in the end. That night, after leaving the promotion party in tears, I sat alone in my small apartment trying to steady my breathing. My family's voices were still ringing in my ears. Every insult, every laugh, every reminder that in their eyes I would never amount to anything. I felt empty, like all the years I had tried to prove myself had led to nothing. I turned my phone back on only because I needed to silence the buzzing notifications, all from people I didn't want to hear from anymore. That's when I saw a voicemail from an unknown New York number. For a moment, I almost deleted it without listening. I was tired, hurt, and convinced nothing good could possibly happen after a night like that. But something made me press play. I heard a man's calm, confident voice introducing himself as Marcus Bennett, creative director at a major agency in New York City. He said he had reviewed my portfolio after a colleague shared it with him. His exact words were, "Your eye for detail is rare. We want to bring you in as a junior art director. Starting salary $75,000. Call me back if you're interested." I froze. I replayed the message 3 times just to make sure I wasn't imagining things. While my own family had been tearing me apart, someone who didn't even know me had seen value in my work. Someone believed I had talent. Someone wanted me, not out of obligation, but because of what I could create. That realization hit harder than anything my family had said. They had never supported me, never encouraged me, never asked about my goals. Not once had they asked to see the portfolio I'd spent months building. They hadn't even known I was still designing. And yet a stranger could recognize my ability in minutes, while my own family refused to see anything good in me. I sat on the edge of my bed holding the phone, feeling something shift inside me. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about what they wanted or what they thought I should be. I was thinking about what I wanted. I didn't owe them my life. I didn't owe them my loyalty. I didn't owe them the chance to drag me down again. The next morning, I called Marcus back. My voice shook a little, but he was warm and direct. He told me the team liked bold ideas, and that my designs showed that I wasn't afraid to take risks. He asked when I could move. I told him I would be there in a week. I packed quietly, not telling a single person from home where I was going. I found a tiny studio apartment in New York, the kind with paper-thin walls and barely enough room for a bed and a desk, but it felt like freedom. I carried my suitcase up the stairs alone, and for once, that loneliness felt like strength. I didn't tell my family because I didn't want them involved, not in my move, not in my future, not in anything. That call didn't just give me a job. It gave me proof that everything my family said about me was wrong. It reminded me that I had worth, even if they refused to see it. And stepping into New York felt like stepping into the life they never believed I could have. But the life I was finally ready to claim. Moving to New York felt like stepping into a world I had only imagined from a distance. Everything was loud, fast, and full of people who didn't know my past or the way my family had treated me. For the first time, I felt like I had a clean page in front of me. My first week at the agency was overwhelming, but in a way that made me feel alive. I met Jordan, Priya, and Trevor, 3 co-workers who treated me with a kindness I wasn't used to. They didn't question my experience or look down on me. They simply accepted me, joked with me, and invited me to lunch as if I had always been part of their circle. It didn't take long before they felt like the family I wished I had. Marcus, my new boss, surprised me even more. He wasn't interested in gossip or hierarchy. He cared about ideas, creativity, and honesty. When he reviewed my first project, he didn't sugarcoat anything, but he also didn't tear me down. He pointed out what worked and what didn't, then told me how to make it better. No mocking, no belittling, no comparing me to someone else. Just guidance. Real guidance. I didn't realize how much I needed that until it happened. Week by week, I started to change. My voice grew steadier in meetings. My concepts became bolder. I stopped second-guessing every thought. The team began noticing my work, praising the small details I never expected anyone to look at. Encouragement felt strange at first, but slowly, I let myself believe it. When one of my designs was chosen for a major campaign pitch, Marcus clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You belong here." Those 3 words meant more than he could know. Outside of work, life felt different too. Jordan dragged me to late-night diners. Priya taught me how to navigate the subway without getting lost. Trevor made sure I laughed whenever the pressure started to build. They didn't replace my family, but they filled a space I had carried empty for far too long. With them, I felt understood. With them, I felt seen. As the months passed, I could feel the weight of my past growing lighter. I wasn't defined by failures or insults anymore. I was defined by what I created, by the effort I put into my work, and by the people who believed in me. I even started liking the woman I saw in the mirror. Someone stronger, someone steadier, someone rebuilding herself piece by piece. Then, in the middle of this new chapter, something unexpected happened. I received an email from a woman named Angela. Her name sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it at first. When I looked closer, I realized she worked at the same firm where Tyler got his promotion. She didn't say much, only that she needed to speak with me urgently. The message was short, almost nervous, and she asked to meet in person. Seeing her name connected to my old life made my stomach twist. I had left that world behind and had no intention of returning to it, not even for a moment. But the tone of her message told me something wasn't right. After everything I'd learned about trusting myself, I couldn't ignore it. My new life had finally started to feel steady, and now a piece of my past was trying to catch up with me. When I met Angela at a quiet cafe near Midtown, I had no idea what she wanted to talk about. She looked tense, checking the door twice before sitting down. I waited, unsure how someone connected to my old life could have anything to say that mattered now. But when she finally spoke, her voice was soft and unsteady. She told me she worked closely with Tyler, and the moment she said his name, my stomach tightened. I thought I was done with anything involving him, but her next words pulled me right back into the past. Angela explained that months before his promotion, Tyler had presented a set of design concepts to his bosses. They loved the work. They said it was fresh, creative, and showed strong leadership. That work, she said, wasn't his. It was mine. She showed me printouts, my designs, my drafts, my color choices. Things I had created in my free time before I left home. Pieces that I had stored on the family computer long before I cut ties. Tyler had taken them, made small changes, and claimed them as original. My heart dropped as I looked at the evidence. Every line, every shape, every idea on those pages came from me. Angela told me she kept quiet for a long time, but guilt finally pushed her to contact me. She said Tyler had become careless, bragging about how easy it was to get ahead. She had seen enough to realize I deserved to know the truth. She handed me a folder with dates, emails, and copies that made everything clear. My brother's promotion wasn't based on his talent. It was built on my work, the same work my family had mocked and dismissed. Sitting there with the evidence in my hands, I felt a shock that slowly transformed into something colder. I had already walked away from my family, but now I understood the full depth of their betrayal. I didn't react outwardly. I didn't shout or cry. I thanked Angela for her honesty and left the cafe with the folder pressed against my chest. As much as it hurt, I wasn't going to lash out without thinking. I had learned that timing mattered. So I let the truth sit quietly in the back of my mind while I focused on the life I was building in New York. At work, everything was moving upward. I was chosen to lead a major pitch for a national client, the biggest opportunity of my career so far. Marcus trusted me completely, and my team supported every decision I made. Preparing for the pitch gave me purpose, something real and solid to hold on to. I poured myself into the project, and slowly, the bitterness started to dull. Then, out of nowhere, my past tried to crawl back into my life. My family, who had ignored me for months, suddenly reached out. Not to apologize, not to check on me, but to ask for money. They said Tyler's baby shower was coming up, and they needed help paying for it. Reading their message made me laugh in disbelief. After everything they had taken from me, my time, my peace, my confidence, they still felt entitled to more. I didn't reply. I didn't send money. I didn't even explain myself. I simply turned the phone off and went back to preparing for the pitch. I wasn't finished growing yet, and I wasn't finished proving to myself that I didn't need them. Their lies had pushed me down for years, but their theft would be the thing that finally pushed me forward. Revenge didn't have to be rushed. I knew I would act when the moment was right. And I knew this time, I wouldn't let anyone rewrite my story again. Traveling to Boston for the pitch felt like stepping into a different version of myself. I had prepared for weeks, studying every detail of the client's brand, rehearsing my presentation, and refining each visual until it felt perfect. Even though it was my first time leading something this large, I didn't let fear control me. I reminded myself that I had worked hard for this moment. I had earned it. The conference room was filled with people in sharp suits, but once I started speaking, the nerves faded. I walked them through the concept with steady hands and a clear voice. Every slide matched my vision, and every question they asked felt like an opportunity to show how much thought I had put into the project. When I finished, there was a long, heavy pause, then the room broke into applause. Marcus glanced at me with pride, and for a second I felt a warmth in my chest I hadn't felt in years. By the time we returned to New York, the news had already reached the agency. We had won the client. It was a multi-million-dollar deal, the biggest the company had secured all year. Suddenly my name was everywhere, emails, congratulatory messages, and even a short announcement from HR. A week later, they promoted me. I became the youngest art director the company had ever had. I should have gone home that evening feeling only happiness, but something unexpected happened that added another layer to the moment. I had to visit Vertex's headquarters in Manhattan to sign some final documents related to the campaign. As I stepped into the main lobby, I heard someone call my name. Before I could turn, a Vertex executive walked up to me with a bright smile, praising the Boston pitch in a loud, clear voice. He said the team was excited to start working with me and that my ideas were already shaping the project. I thanked him, trying not to blush from the attention. While he talked, I noticed someone off to the side staring at me. It was my cousin Emma. She looked shocked, almost frozen. We hadn't spoken in months. The last time I saw her was at a family gathering where she joined everyone else in laughing at me. Now she stood there clutching a folder, her eyes wide as she listened to the executive praising my work like I was someone important. Emma approached me slowly, but before she could say anything, the executive handed me his card and told me he was looking forward to our next meeting. His voice echoed through the lobby, and I knew Emma heard every word. I didn't explain anything to her. I didn't know her or anyone else from my past an explanation. I simply gave her a polite nod and walked out. As I stepped onto the street, the cool air hit my face, and something inside me settled. I no longer cared about proving myself to the people who had dismissed me. I didn't need them to see my worth. They were seeing it now without me trying. In that moment, I realized I wasn't the girl who used to wait for their approval. I was building a life that had nothing to do with them, a life they could never take credit for. And I wasn't done rising yet. When the article came out, I wasn't expecting it to spread so quickly. A major advertising publication featured my work on the front page of their digital issue, calling me one of the freshest young art directors to watch. They highlighted the Boston pitch, my design style, and the steps that led me to my role at the agency. My coworkers celebrated with me. Marcus stopped by my office to say he was proud, and my team surprised me with cupcakes. It felt like a bright, calm moment in my life, until my phone buzzed nonstop. Dozens of messages from family filled my screen. At first, I ignored them, but the calls kept coming. They acted shocked, writing things like, "Why didn't you tell us you were doing big things?" And "We want to see you, we want to talk." Then they invited me to Tyler's baby shower. The same people who once laughed in my face suddenly wanted me to show up and be part of the group again. I could feel that old anger stirring, but instead of letting it consume me, I paused. I realized I didn't have to hide anymore. If they wanted me there, then I would go, but on my terms. I walked into the event calmly, not dressed to impress, not trying to prove anything. I simply walked in as myself. They rushed over, pretending to be warm and welcoming, acting as if nothing painful had ever happened. It would have been easy to fall for their sudden change, but I knew it wasn't real. They wanted the version of me they could brag about, not the one they had once pushed aside. When everyone gathered to make a toast for Tyler, I asked for a moment to speak. The room went quiet. I could feel every eye on me, waiting to hear something polite. Instead, I told the truth. I started with the night of Tyler's promotion, repeating the exact words they had used to mock me. I told them how deeply their laughter cut, how none of them cared why I walked away that night. Then I went further. I explained the years I spent supporting our family, the sacrifices I made, the work I did without recognition. I saw several faces drop when they realized they had never known what I did for them. After that, I revealed what Angela had shown me, how Tyler stole my designs, passed them off as his own, and used them to climb higher at work. Gasps filled the room. I even pulled out the folder with the evidence, holding it up so no one could claim I was making things up. Tyler tried to talk over me, but I didn't give him the chance. I told everyone that I was done pretending we were a close, loving family. I said I wasn't interested in being part of a group that only valued me when it made them look good. When I turned to leave, silence swept across the room. No one laughed this time. As I stepped outside, I heard footsteps behind me. For the first time in my life, they actually chased me, calling my name, asking me to stop. But I didn't look back. I kept walking, and with each step, I felt lighter. I had spoken my truth, and I didn't owe them anything more. My life wasn't tied to theirs anymore. I was free. Months passed quietly after the baby shower confrontation. I focused on my work, my friends, and the calm that came from finally cutting the last threads that tied me to the people who hurt me. I didn't expect anything from them anymore. I didn't wait for apologies, and I didn't hope for change. I built my own life in New York and kept moving forward. So when a thick envelope arrived in my mailbox one cold morning, I almost tossed it aside, until I saw my mother's handwriting. Inside were 3 separate letters. The first was from my mother. 8 pages, written in shaky pen. She admitted every moment she ignored me, every time she allowed Tyler to take the spotlight, every joke she let slide knowing it hurt me. She wrote that she never meant to break me, but she finally understood that her silence had done exactly that. She explained that she watched my success from a distance, and it made her realize how wrong she had been. She called it a confession, not an apology. The second letter was from my father. His tone was blunt but strangely honest. He said he used my dedication because it was convenient. He admitted he relied on me because he knew I wouldn't refuse, and that he took advantage of that. He apologized for calling me lazy when I had worked harder than anyone. At the end of the letter, he wrote that he was returning the $40,000 I had spent on his medical bills because he never should have let a young girl carry that weight alone. The third letter was from Tyler, and it surprised me the most. He confessed that he had stolen my designs because he couldn't stand the idea of me succeeding before him. He wrote that he was jealous of my eye for detail, my ideas, even my courage to work through hard years while he took the easier path. He explained that after I exposed him, his firm launched an internal investigation. He nearly lost his job, but Angela spoke up and proved he wasn't the sole creator of anything he had presented. He wrote that he realized he was the one who fell short, not me. It wasn't a plea to reconnect, just an admission that he had done real harm. Reading their words didn't bring the relief I expected. It didn't wipe away the pain or create a sudden desire to run back to them. What it did was help me see the truth clearly. I had spent years trying to earn love from people who barely understood what love meant. I folded the letters, placed them in a drawer, and didn't respond. Not because I hated them, but because I finally understood my peace mattered more than their guilt. I deposited the $40,000 my father returned and used it as a down payment on a small condo. It wasn't big, but it was mine, my own safe space, built without their influence. My career continued rising. I was trusted with bigger clients, larger teams, and more leadership responsibilities. And as my life grew, I met Peter. He was gentle, steady, and respectful in ways that felt unfamiliar. He listened when I spoke and never made me feel small. Being around him showed me what healthy treatment actually looked like. The letters didn't fix the past, but they marked a shift. I didn't go back, and I didn't open the door wide again. I set boundaries, chose distance, and kept building a life that finally felt like it belonged to me. I never imagined my life would look the way it did by the time I turned 29. The girl who once cried in her car after a promotion party had become creative director of one of the fastest-growing agencies in New York. The promotion came after years of long nights, risks that scared me, and projects that pushed me out of my comfort zone. When Marcus announced it at a team meeting, I felt something settle in my chest, not pride alone, but relief that all the pain I carried once had finally led me somewhere solid. A year later, the partners called me into a meeting and offered me a junior partner position. I stared at the contract for a moment, remembering every time someone in my family told me I wasn't capable of anything. Now I was becoming part of the leadership of a company that trusted me with million-dollar clients. It didn't feel like a dream coming true. It felt like a life I built with my own hands, step by step, without help from the people who once claimed I couldn't make it. During those years of growth, something unexpected happened with my family. Their letters had started the shift, but what followed showed that they were actually trying to change. My mother began therapy and stayed with it. Her messages became softer, more aware, and she stopped making excuses for the past. She didn't push. She simply checked in gently, never demanding anything. My father wrote shorter but sincere notes, acknowledging old habits and showing that he finally understood why I had walked away. Tyler apologized again, this time without adding explanations to defend himself. They didn't pressure me to return home. They didn't ask for big moments or pretend the past didn't happen. Instead, they respected the boundaries I had set. They didn't rewrite what they had done, didn't minimize the hurt, and didn't try to act like everything could go back to normal. That honesty mattered to me more than any grand gesture could. I didn't let them back immediately, and I didn't let them back fully. I allowed small steps, short calls, birthday cards, updates shared in careful amounts. I let them exist in the edges of my life, far from the center where my work, my friends, and Peter lived. I wasn't angry anymore, but I also wasn't willing to offer the same trust one once gave them without question. Healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant accepting what had happened and choosing what place they were allowed to have now. Building my life in New York taught me that strength didn't always look like confrontation. Sometimes it looked like distance, quiet choices, and steady growth. Each milestone, my promotions, my condo, my stable relationship, showed me that I didn't need the old version of family to feel whole. I had created a life with balance, warmth, and respect, things I had longed for without realizing it. By letting my family in only where I felt safe, I protected myself while still allowing space for new beginnings. It wasn't perfect, and it never would be, but it was honest. And for the first time, I finally felt like I was living a life that truly belonged to me. When Liam turned 3, I received an invitation to his small birthday gathering. A few years earlier, I would have ignored it without thinking twice. But things were different now. I had my own life, my own stability, and enough distance to protect my peace. So I agreed to go, not to reconnect in a deep way, but to show that I wasn't running anymore. I walked in with a simple gift and a steady mind, fully aware of how far I had come since the last time I stood in a room full of them. The atmosphere was calm, nothing like the past events filled with tension and judgment. My family greeted me carefully, respecting the boundaries I had set. Liam didn't know anything about our history. He just looked at me with happy curiosity as he played with his balloons. Seeing him run around made me smile in a way I didn't expect. There was no bitterness attached to the moment, just quiet acceptance. After the cake was served and the room settled, Tyler pulled me aside. For the first time in my life, he looked genuinely nervous. He thanked me, not for helping him, not for showing up, but for leaving when I did. He said my absence forced him to face the truth about himself, something he never would have confronted if I had stayed and continued carrying the weight for everyone. He admitted that losing me as the easy target made him see how unfair and selfish he had been. His voice didn't shake, but his honesty did. It softened something in me, not enough for closeness, but enough for closure. I listened, not because I needed validation, but because those words marked the end of a chapter one had carried far too long. I told him I hoped he kept growing, not for me, but for his son. There was no anger in my voice, only a calm understanding that we were two very different people now. We would never be close, and that was fine. Some connections aren't meant to be rebuilt. Some are meant to be acknowledged and left gently behind. Standing outside afterward, watching the sun dip behind the trees, I felt a quiet strength settle inside me. My revenge had never been about payback. It wasn't about exposing them, winning arguments, or proving points. My real victory came from building a life that had nothing to do with their expectations. I had outgrown the pain, the labels, and the version of myself they once insisted I was. I had healed on my terms. I had a career I loved, a home that felt safe, friends who treated me like family, and a partner who respected me in every way I once wished for. For the first time, the future felt clear and wide open. As I walked toward my car, I realized that stepping away all those years ago was the turning point. Walking away didn't break me, it freed me. And sometimes, that is the most powerful revenge anyone can choose. Do you think I made the right choice by walking away from my family, or should I have given them another chance? I would really love to know what you think in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like mine, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss one again.